You're listening to the Second Mass Report, the Falling Skies podcast, and tonight we are covering Season 4, Episode 8, and tonight's episode is called A Thing with Feathers, which is either very descriptive or very nondescriptive.
Very nondescriptive. I'm going to go with B, Frank.
Great to be along with you once again, Rob. Frank Stella here on the podcast, and I don't know what to make of the feathers because I didn't see any things with feathers. So I'm not sure if that we're supposed to take that figuratively or what we were talking about.
Well, here's what I was thinking, and I know I'm probably not even close. Was it the thing that went up Tom's arm? Did it have feathers?
No.
Okay.
And if it did, that would not be something to name the episode after. That wasn't very central focus of the episode.
You want to hear the worst part of this?
No, not really.
No, there's probably some basic thing that it meant, and you and I just can't figure it out, and people are going to be listening to this going, idiots, it was blank. But I the whole time as I'm watching, I kept thinking, what is feathers?
Maybe we should be tarred and feathered for not knowing what a thing with feathers is.
I think we're slightly retard and feathered.
A bird?
I don't know. I couldn't,
it's a bird.
What did it mean by a thing with feathers?
Rob, it's a bird. It's a plane. No, it's a thing with feathers.
Oh, you're just cracking yourself up over there, Frank.
I thought you were going to crack up with me.
No, I'm not.
All right. Well, that's a first. Or is it? Anyway, so when I think of this episode, to me, this episode, one word that comes to mind is recovery.
Yes. Well, this was aftermath is the word that came to my mind.
Recovery.
I actually, at the beginning of the episode, said that out loud, like, oh, this is the aftermath episode.
Okay. I could see that, and I felt like not much of real... Well, okay, let me put it to you this way.
But recovery makes a lot of sense.
Let me put it to you this way. Not much happened in this episode that would progress the story of the human-alien war, but a lot of things did happen. I think a lot of emotional things happened in this episeld.
Yeah,
I think this episode was kind of like a lot of the emotion that we didn't have time for last week.
Right. I think that if you could have melded these two episodes together, I think you would have been a lot more satisfied with what happened last week, and I think this one would have moved a little bit better, because I actually found myself kind of drifting during this one. Even though it was good and I was enjoying it, I wasn't paying as close attention through it at times.
You know what? I actually experienced that too. I
don't know if it's an aftermath, I got to use my word, of last week.
It felt a little bit like I kind of glazed over a little bit at sometimes. Just kind of like last week I was completely engaged and completely focused.
Like you couldn't blink.
Right, and I was kind of going, this just feels like messy. And with this episode I felt it was very more tightly knit. I felt it was organized more, but I just felt not as engaged as last week. So I don't know what to make of it, but I did feel overall that this episode was maybe not as exciting, but better in that it just felt like a more quality episode to me.
Yeah, see, once again, I thought last week's was great. I really enjoyed it. So I'm not going to say that. What I'll say about it is I am a fan of the transition episode. This is a transition episode. You have your big action, you have your big story movers, and this happens on every show. And then you'll have a transition episode. And the transition episode is really where, like you said, a lot of character development happens. A lot of story development kind of works itself out. This was that. Are those the episodes I go back to? Not typically. Like if let's say it's 5 years from now and Falling Skies is on TV and I see, oh, they're doing a marathon, I'm not going to pick this as a jumping on point. But if I saw last week's episode, I'd be like, oh, hell yeah, I got to watch that one.
And last week, it's interesting because last week we talked about last week's episode being a turning point in the entire series.
Totally.
And now we're talking about this being a transition episode. So we're kind of turning point and we're kind of transitioning into where the turning point is leading us.
Yes. And you know what? There really was another turning point in this one. There's a lot of stuff going on. The whole Maggie thing this week was quite a turning point.
Okay. Yeah, that's for sure.
Okay, so last week, on the last episode, when we were talking, you had not seen the preview for what is now this week.
Okay.
And in the preview, what I didn't want to spoil is it clearly showed Maggie alive. And then it showed her getting harnessed or having the pegs put in her back. And I was like, I wish they hadn't shown that because it was right after this big shocker, and I like Maggie, and I'm going, oh no,
And
she's
so
dead.
we're still wondering if she's alive or not. But then the preview goes and basically answers the question.
And that's why I didn't spoil it for you last week because you didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And I clearly did, and I'm like, that was kind of a bummer that they used that in the preview. So this week, we find out that Maggie's alive, if you didn't pay attention. She's alive. And
I kind of glazed over during that.
Oh, and it also had her say that she can't feel her legs. And I'm like, oh, she's going to be paralyzed. And oh, they must be harnessing her to give her the ability to walk. Like all that was in that 10-second preview.
Wow.
And what I found to be kind of the transition or turning point for her was the whole thing, how like her and Ben and the way Ben laid it out there and then saved her life. Now, when she went off with Ben at the end, do you think that she just dumped Hal, or what do you think that was?
I'm confused. We were talking because Ben went off with Lexi.
Oh, he did? You know what? I told you, I drifted. Even in this part, when I was really kind of like interested, I kind of drifted. So where did Maggie go? Because I saw Hal walk off.
When are you talking about?
At the end.
Of this episode or last week?
Of this episode. Sorry.
No, Hal and Maggie were like kissing and everything.
And then
she like she smashes him and says that's for betraying me, but then she kisses him and said that's for saving me.
Right. And then he says, I didn't save you. Ben did. And she went over to Ben, and then Hal slunk away. Didn't you catch that?
To me, that doesn't mean.
Now, I don't think it means that either, but I wonder if
it doesn't mean whoever saves me gets to date me.
Because if that's the case, I'm going to save her.
Yeah.
Guess what, guys? I had nothing to do with this, but I win.
I'm going to donate a lot of blood and things to women and see where we go from there.
Well, the lucky Mrs. Frank Stella got a pint of blood.
Yeah. That'll be a great love story. How did you guys meet? Well, I donated my kidney. And now
on Match.com. How about you? Donated a kidney.
And for that, I owe him a great, fulfilling marriage.
Frank met on OrganMatch.com.
It's a match. My organ wasn't rejected for once.
Wow. You know what? Lourdes is in trouble. Maybe you could donate to Lourdes.
Maybe I'll donate her some hot, steamy Italian blood.
Okay, I'm going to throw up now.
Good. We need our alone time. Get out of here, Rob.
That's right. Gross.
All right. Anyway.
So what had feathers? I'm still.
Yeah.
We'll address that later.
We do now.
So I want to know. So you're saying that I've got 14 thoughts going on at once.
I got 99 problems.
And thoughts aren't one for me right now. So you didn't feel that was like a way of separating her and Hal, because I'm not saying that she chose to go to Ben and like, okay, you saved me and I'm done. I kind of felt like it broke their relationship. Like he knows I didn't step up and save you, and he knows Ben is in love.
Well, she just kissed him.
Yeah, but now your brother was willing to die for her.
So suddenly that.
So do you step aside?
Suddenly that breaks up Hal, and that doesn't make any sense.
Because relationships and everything in this environment are moving very quickly.
But that's
I'm not saying it makes sense, Frank.
Well, I'm not going to suggest something that doesn't make sense.
Well, then we're done here, sir. I don't make sense half the time.
Should have been done last season.
Yeah, right. Not according to our one fan. Let me give a shout out. What's our fan's name?
Are you suggesting that we only have one fan?
Well, no, but we have a fan that wrote something really nice on a review, and I'm not going to say where they wrote it, but they're our fan.
Yeah, what was it?
I'm giving them a shout out.
Brea Tarpit.
I'm giving a very lame shout out because I can't remember.
A lame shout out goes out to Brea Tarpit.
Yeah, Brea Tarpit.
Who was our one fan apparently last year, and
I think we had more than one. We had
two. Oh, whoa, moving up in the world.
Yeah.
Well, Brea Tarpit, if you are listening, we welcome you back to Frank and Rob's take on Falling Skies. So, anyway, what had feathers? I don't know. No, I don't get the sense that
we're never gonna work that out, are we?
Okay, I think Maggie and Ben have a special thing that's not romantic. I think Hal and Maggie have still a healthy relationship. As best I can figure, that's the end of it.
Okay. Okay.
Now,
All right.
I want to talk about something because something doesn't add up between last week and this week.
Okay. What is it?
Ben and Lexi went to a ship, and we didn't see them get on the ship, but there was a ship, and it seemed like Lexi was inviting him onto the ship. Next thing you know, next time we see them, they're not on a ship. They're in the skitterizing facility.
Right.
And I'm going, and I was like,
but wait a minute.
at first when I saw them, I'm like, that doesn't look like an Esfeni ship. And then I'm like, okay, after a while, I'm like, that's definitely not a ship.
I said it looked like a Walmart warehouse.
Yeah,
it looked like to me.
Yeah, it looked like Warehouse 13.
Yeah.
So I'm going, did they get on a ship and it took them there, or did they not get on the ship at all and they decided sometime in between episodes, it's like, you know what, let's not do this. Let's go to a fair. And wasn't Ben like laying on the ground when we first saw him? Like he was waking up.
That's what I was going to say. This is what didn't make sense to me. You're right. What happened with that ship? He must have gotten on the ship, but he acts like he didn't even know he got on the ship, let alone that they dropped him off at this facility.
And that just adds to last week's messiness. If you want to know what I'm thinking, I think
it's this week's messiness.
I thought last week was such a mess, and now we're still reaping the benefits of it.
Yeah, but isn't this would be this week's messiness because it ended on the cliffhanger. Is he getting on the ship? Is he not? And they didn't really resolve it. They just have you go, oh yeah, he must have gotten on the ship, but we don't know if it was by his own will, and we don't know. I mean, it seemed like he was almost like knocked out or something. I don't know. It didn't add up.
I'll put it to you this way.
Once again, I'm saying it's not last week's problem, it's this week's problem.
You know what? I'll put it to you this way. It's both weeks' problem because one left off somewhere and the other picked up completely somewhere else without a transition. It's a mess on both sides. You can't say that it was one episode's fault or the other. I think last week felt messy to me, and I was fine with Ben and Lexi ending up where they did, looking like they were going to get on a ship, but you have a problem with both of the episodes when they don't you can't draw a line from one to the next.
Okay.
So
all right, I'm willing to go with everything you said.
And this is where it seems like 2 weeks in a row now, I'm having problems with maybe the writing of the show.
Okay.
The storyline is kind of, like, in a general sense, I'm fine with the storyline of this season. But there's, like, some things that I'm just going, like, this wasn't written well. Or they should have, like, at least by the time they were shooting this and editing it, or not even editing, but by the time they were shooting it, should have gone, you know what, we got to figure something out. Because this doesn't work. This doesn't follow.
Something doesn't match up here.
Yeah. So, I don't know. That's one thing that I'm going to be picky on for this week. So I can honestly say that I don't know how Ben and Lexi got to where they did from where we left off last week, and it's not a kind of thing where I don't think we're supposed to, like, find out later. You know, I mean, if we do, maybe cool, but I didn't get the sense that it was like a burning question that, like, oh, can't wait to find out what happened.
Right.
It just felt like it felt like they were trying to pick up from somewhere that they didn't leave off and not have have us question it. Even though it's kind of like a huge gaping hole in the writing.
Yeah.
So I don't get it, but that's all I got to say on that.
You know what? I'm with you. There was something wrong with that whole situation.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know. Maybe there was something. Maybe there was a scene that was left out or something.
Could have been,
but it wasn't what we're thinking.
Then maybe it is a problem with the editing and not the shooting. Maybe they edited something out that was a big mistake and that shouldn't have been edited out.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, there was something funky, that's for sure.
Another thing that really stood out to me this episode is just kind of how nasty it was. We saw some nasty stuff in this episode.
Okay. You mean like visual nasty?
Visual, just psychologically, like just things that were like, glad that's not happening to me.
All right. Yeah,
first,
like Tom's worm.
Yeah, we have Tom and Dangan are stuck under wherever they were. And they find their way up to this beamer. And, well, first of all, I got to point this out because this is hilarious, at least to me. Dangan is starting to whack the top of the cavern thing that they're in with, like, this, like, big stick-looking thing. All I could see was Mr. Echo with his stick.
Yes.
So.
Oh, you know what's funny? I actually was getting that Echo vibe through that whole scene. And even when he did his soliloquy, which, you know what? I thought the actor did a great job through it. I thought he had great emotional,
This was the most development we've seen out of him.
But you know what? Man, it was a weird scene.
It was.
and it was just kind of plugged in there, and I just kind of felt like I think that's where I really started to drift.
And his voice was echoing.
But I thought of Mr. Echo. I was thinking of, and I thought of you. That's kind of weird.
When he had when he had that stick, though, he was banging that stick against the ceiling. I was like, oh, it's Mr. Echo.
Mr. Echo. Yep.
So there was that. Yeah, and we saw a lot of development from Dengon, who I guess that I'm thinking I'm pronouncing that correct. Dingo, whatever his name is. But did you feel that the development was kind of, I don't know, forced or hokey or something? Because you were saying you started to drift, and I was like, I was kind of trying to listen. I was like, okay, I see where you're coming from, but I almost feel like it was kind of forced. Like, oh, I just don't like the idea of being buried. And Tom's like, yeah, like as in opposed to all the other people that do like the idea. And it was just kind of like, oh, okay, there's something. And then you find out later, I guess, what did he say? His kid died underground, or I forget.
Like, well, it's like his kid and his wife.
Yeah, something. And I just felt like, okay, I see you're trying to develop this guy, but I feel like that felt a little bit forced to me.
Yeah.
Also, how we didn't even know that Dengon was buried with Tom until this week. We thought Tom was just kind of alone under there, and all of a sudden, Dengon is there too. And I'm like, did you just put him there just because you felt like we need to pull some character development out of our butts this episode, so let's throw him in there? Yeah. I don't know. It felt a little bit forced.
I totally agree. The whole scene was. And even, okay, this is the most complaining we've done about this show, by the way. Usually we're so positive about everything. But that whole thing, I was so, like, confused and disinterested for the first part of it when they were under the ship, and then they started crawling their way through, and then that scene happened. Like, none of it, I just didn't care. And I think this character is one that we were supposed to have some mystery to in the beginning of the season. We thought he was going to be something a little more intriguing, and he really hasn't done anything. And now his big scene is him crying about his kid. And I'm like, well,
and that's something that we've seen. I mean, I don't mean to be mean to someone who lost their kid, but I feel like we've seen enough of that on this show.
Oh, Frank, you're heartless.
But we've seen enough of that on this show. We've seen enough of that with Anne, and we see something like that with Pope. I don't know. I just feel like, okay, again with my kid died.
I lost my kid or whatever. Yeah.
Weaver. I mean, I just feel like
Weaver. You're not gonna lump his in there the same way.
But I'm not talking about. I'm not
she
talking
got
about.
Turned. That was horrible.
I'm talking about his other kids and his wife.
True.
That's going back to season 1.
Yeah. Okay. I thought you were talking about his daughter. I'm like, oh God, that's a little different.
No, not that. It's more like, okay, we didn't know this person. We didn't really see this kid.
Right.
And now we're hearing about them.
Story.
I mean, that works a couple times, but I feel like, okay, again with this. I don't know. I thought they could have developed him in a cooler way.
Yeah, well, I totally agree. Now, okay, let me finish the thought I had. I said the first half I was a little distracted and maybe even bored by this scene. I wasn't caring for Tom and Dingot down in the ship until they end up where the pods are, and Tom touches one, and...
You're talking about going up into the beamer.
Yes.
Now, I was kind of really thrown because you'll recall even last week's episode or last week's podcast, I was saying a beamer isn't like, there's not a lot of room on it. I thought it was a very small little fighter ship. I didn't think that you could actually really get inside of it and like
I
was
around. Thinking that too, but I think it might be a little bit bigger than we're saying.
And I thought there was a time back in season 2 when they shot down some beamers, and I think Ben was walking around in the woods, I think with Jimmy, and they found like the wrecked beamer, and it was, unless it was maybe just a small fragment of it, but I remember it looked like really small, almost like maybe not much bigger than a human or two. Like you couldn't. Right. It wasn't something that you could
like as a small fighter or something.
Yeah, it wasn't.
That was what I always thought it was. And this was cramped. It wasn't that big, but it was definitely bigger than what my impression of it was.
Yeah, I don't, and I mean that was big. I mean that looked bigger than an airplane. There was a lot of space to walk around. There was a lot of headroom. I mean, it was pretty roomy in there. I was kind of like, whoa, this is like a big ship.
Yeah.
So I don't get that, but we had Tom sticking his hand in this weird little.
Okay, did you ever see the movie Flash Gordon?
No.
Frank, you're missing out. The most awesome, cheesy sci-fi movie ever.
Well, Rob,
Sam Jones,
I guess I have better things to do.
It's spectacular. Anyway, there's a scene where the one character flashes on this planet, and I can't think of his name. It's the guy he played James Bond. Is it Pierce Brosnan?
Yeah.
Okay. He shows him this rite of passage they have where there's this. It looks like a tree with all these knots, and they have to stick their hand in to prove their manliness. And there's a thing in there that will bite you and kill you if it bites you. So you stick your hand in, hoping that you pick the right hole that the thing's not in. And when Tom put his hand in there, I'm like, oh, it's totally Flash Gordon.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I was digging it.
I got a scene in my mind from National Treasure 2 when they're up on Mount Rushmore and Nicolas Cage sticks his arm into something and he starts like screaming and but he's like
that's what he was doing. That's what he was doing. That scene from Flash Gordon. That's what he was mimicking.
Oh, okay. So we are on the same page.
Yeah, that's totally it. That's awesome. That's awesome. That your reference point is based on what he was referencing. That's awesome.
All right. Well, then I guess we are getting places after all.
That's right. Do you Brea Tar Pit? There's a reason you love us.
Absolutely.
Right.
Whoever that person is.
Yes.
So what else did we have this episode? We had and nasty things. Tom went and touched the glowing business, and I don't know why.
That didn't sound good.
Well, it's not good. And I don't know why he decided to do that today after all the times he'd been on alien ships.
I know! He touches it, and what happens? Some big, nasty thing climbs up his arm. I thought that was the thing with feathers. I don't think it had feathers, but I think that might have been what it was referring to. I don't know.
If it does, I don't get it, because that was actually a very minor point in the episode. And honestly, the more I think about this, the more I feel like that a lot of things in this episode were just kind of pulled out of the writers' butts. Because they thought, okay, we've had enough emotional, mushy.
Thank goodness it wasn't pulled out of Tom's butt. It was stayed in his arm.
We'll get there. Season 5, they're gonna pull.
I said 5. It's gonna be butt worms. Gross.
Oh gosh, I think that's a thing.
I'm gonna throw up.
Anyway, but I just felt like, okay, they pulled this emotional development out of their butts, and then
wouldn't that be called a scatter?
Wow.
Yep. Thank you.
Or a squatter.
Oh, gross. Okay.
But I just felt like
right ahead.
No, I'm just saying the writers went, okay, we have this emotional development. Now we got to pull something kind of freaky and exciting out of our butts to kind of counteract, in case anyone's getting bored. And I'm just like, oh no, that makes it even worse. We have no idea what that thing was, what it would have done had they not pulled it out.
Yeah, that thing was crazy too.
And I'm just like, oh no, they just pulled something out of their butts just to get you excited for a second and then not really find out what was going on.
Yeah.
And not much was made out of that. I mean, if that happened to you, wouldn't that be an extremely memorable day in your life?
Not just that. So they pull the thing out, and he wouldn't you be screaming in pain? He said it was like fish hooks in there, and he was in pain as he was pulling it out. Don't stop, and he pulls it out, but then it's just like, oh, okay, we're all better. Oh, okay, I get a paper cut. I'm a big mess for 2 minutes, from a tiny paper cut. That thing, I'd have been comatose.
And that's another thing where I just feel like this might have been another little messy thing that just kind of it was exciting for a few minutes and then just kind of swept under the rug and never spoken of again. And I was just like,
yeah,
that's not.
I mean, that thing was a pretty serious thing.
That's not believable, and that's where I have problems with things that aren't believable.
Right.
I mean, it was kind of exciting. It was kind of cool. It was kind of, something to look at. But then when you think about it, it was kind of that didn't really make a lot of sense. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Again, I like the story of this season, but just a lot of the little things are kind of tripping me.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. Like I said, I liked the episode. Did you like this one more or less than last week?
See, last week's was more entertaining, but this week's was better. It was more quality.
Okay. I actually enjoyed last week's more than this week, but I'm not going to go by the quality standard, but I do enjoy these transition episodes. I like to I like what they do to the story, and I think that was pushing the story forward in some, not even pushing the story forward. I like what it does to the character development. I'm always a sucker for character development.
And as we all should be, as non-Michael Bay fans,
Right.
fanboys. However, there's a good way to do it. There's a way to make it compelling and not feel contrived and just forced. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. And yeah, I think that there was something off with this one, and I think that it was a little contrived and a little forced at times. So
yeah. So they're
for
I'm
me, a lot of it was the
with you.
Tom and Dinkot or whatever his name is.
Ding dong.
Yeah, Dingon.
Ding dong.
Uh, that was where I had the most problems. But I did like when they got up and the thing went into his arm, and like he pulled the pin and was like, "Uh oh," you know. I liked all of that. It was the stuff around that I didn't care for.
Yeah. I'm with you there. The other thing was they continued the weird development of the thing exploding or the impending doom of it exploding, and I was just like, what? I don't know. I felt like kind of a little bit thrown off by that, and that's where I started to kind of like feel a little bit disengaged with the episode. I was like, why aren't they getting out of there? And then didn't it end up exploding with them like in it?
No, they blew through the thing. Oh, I don't know.
It looked like a pretty huge explosion.
Yeah,
and they were inside it, and all of a sudden, like,
I was thinking they weren't really back from.
But it made a nice, clean little hole that he was just smiling
right.
up out of. And I was like, wouldn't that have like blown your face off?
Yeah.
So yeah, okay, another weird thing.
Yeah.
It's funny because like I kind of felt like a little bit like I've been saying, kind of glazed over through the episode. Now that I'm piecing it apart in my head, I'm like, what? A lot of this just didn't flow. A lot of it didn't follow. So I don't know. What else do we need to talk about? There's something.
What did we miss?
I feel like there's a lot of things. I feel like we could just like click off here, and then I'll be like, "Oh yeah,
right.
we didn't talk about like this."
Well,
I wanted to talk about a lot of the kind of emotional, like passionate displays that we saw from just about everyone in the Mason family today. I think most notably Matt and Hal. We saw a lot of just kind of like emotional, passionate outbursts from them. What did you think of Matt?
Punching Pope?
What'd you think of that? He comes up behind him and says, "I'm telling you, he's not dead." Gives him a pretty good smash in the face, and Pope just takes it.
Yeah, well, I think it's a rite of passage for the Masons. I think every single one of them has to punch Pope. Coming up next, Lexi punches Pope.
That'd be good.
I think everybody in the Masons has to punch Pope at some point.
I think Anne probably is coming up on her turn.
Exactly.
Speaking of which, did you see the preview for next episode?
I did.
I think wedding bells.
Oh, you saw the preview this time, huh?
Wedding bells are ringing and dinging.
Yeah, so they're going to get married, and it was implied that Anne could die next week. And now that we know there's only one more season, you know what? Maybe she's the Mason that goes. Maybe they pull the plug on somebody because there's only 14 episodes total left. I wouldn't be surprised if we did see some main characters start going like we did last week.
Yeah, and maybe it's like a race to the finish where people are dropping like flies.
Right. And having Anne go would, I mean, I don't want it. I like Anne, but that could happen. It would make sense.
I don't see that happening this season.
Well, in the last preview, they showed, Maggie saying she's paralyzed and all that. They gave a lot away. This one, they might be giving a lot away again.
Maybe, but like it's 10 seconds. I mean, you can give a lot away in 10 seconds, but at the same time, you're not seeing everything.
Right.
We don't know if the wedding is going to take place in the beginning of the episode, and then all hell's going to break loose, or all hell's going to break loose, and then in the midst of it all, there's going to be this beautiful moment. Like we don't know.
He thinks like that scene where it looks like she gets shot or whatever happens, and she survives, and he feels like, you know what? I don't want you dying without us getting married. That could be what it is, and then Weaver marries them.
Could be, yeah. Could be anything at this point. But it looked like we were getting a wedding scene next week, so get ready for pretty much something that we've been kind of wondering about since really the beginning, since season
Right.
one. And I mean, I think the last episode of season one, Tom kissed her, and that's when we kind of went like, there it is. And then of course, there's having a baby and the whole thing, and so you're just kind of like waiting for the wedding at this point.
Right. Although, once again, in this post-attack world, the way relationships are and everything, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they had never gotten married. I don't know what characters, it's kind of like Walking Dead. I don't know what characters are going to bother to get married, although some have.
Yeah, and I mean, that's part of the drama of it, and that's part of just kind of, sticking it out, sticking together as humans, and just part of what we like to get into, and that's one way that I think that we feel that this is relatable, and just them trying to live with, I don't want to say normal lives, but a sense of familiarity with normalcy in the midst of a post-apocalypse or post-alien invasion, and that's kind of what keeps us interested, So I'm actually looking forward to a good wedding scene next week.
All right. Are you going to be a flower girl?
I'm going to be a flower child.
Ring bearer?
Maybe. Just like Frodo Baggins.
Good one.
And take that ring to Mordor. I'm going to fly it in on eagle's wings.
Wow, you're just not going to end with the Tolkien references, are you?
Let's see. What can I gotta think about?
You're still working another one out?
No, I'm trying to think of a pun now.
Keep working on it.
Okay. Yeah, I have one, but I can't figure out how to word it, and it's just not worth it.
This doesn't ring a bell, huh? Okay. That didn't work either. That was as close as I could get.
I'm trying to think. Is that a pun?
No. It's just a bad joke.
I don't get it.
Yeah. I was infected by a scatter.
Okay. I was infected by a squatter.
All right, I think we're done.
What are we
done, Frank? Did we hit it all?
What's next week's episode called?
Oh my gosh! Now you're going to put that one on me? Let's see if I can figure it out.
I didn't think it was.
Why don't you do your business, and I'll tell you what next week's episode is called when I find it.
I'm assuming my business is talking about our social media campaign.
Yes, it is.
All right. Well, we are on Facebook, and I would love to have some more interaction there because no one comments or likes any of my posts. So I'm going to play that card and just say that you can find us on Facebook, Second Mass Report, the Falling Skies Podcast. We're also on Twitter, where there's a lot of I guess interaction going on there with all the favoriting and retweeting going on. We've actually been able to kind of have a little bit of contact with some of the actors on the show. We've had a little bit with Doug Jones, a little bit with Max Knight, and Mira Sorvino. And this is something that I did want to mention because she did tweet out that she's asking for prayers for continued recovery of her brother Mike, who had just...
Oh, Frank, you just cut out.
Oh, sorry. Let's repeat the tweet. Mira Sorvino tweeted, "Hey, all, I'd just like..."
You're cutting out totally. Hold on, Frank. What's going on?
Who's going?
I'm hearing nothing. Uh-oh. Okay, you there?
Can you hear me?
Let's try it again.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. I could hear you fine. I don't know what was going on.
That was so weird.
I'll just try and edit it peacefully. So I just wanted to mention that Mira Sorvino had tweeted out, "Hey all, I'd just love some powerful prayers for continued recovery for my brother Mike, who just lost his appendix. And dear, this is a Twitter username, Champagne Joy, not sure who that is, but Mira Sorvino, by the way,
Wait, you just crapped out again. Just say the Champagne Joy, don't know who that is. I don't know, maybe we're having a storm or something, but you're just completely cutting out.
Okay, I don't know where to start.
You said the thing about her brother in the appendix, and then you said, and then Champagne Joy, and then it went, that's all I heard.
I'm going to start over because it's not going to sound like a clean edit.
Okay, go ahead.
Just wanted to say that Mira Sorvino, who plays Sarah on the show, had tweeted out, "Hey all, I'd love some powerful prayers for continued recovery for my brother Mike, who just lost his appendix, and dear Champagne Joy," that's a Twitter username, not sure her relationship to that person, but that person is apparently battling stage 4 breast cancer. So I just wanted to encourage us all to, go ahead and keep those folks in our thoughts and prayers, or maybe send Mira an encouraging word if you feel so inclined. So Mira, we're thinking and praying for you and your people, so just wanted to go ahead and throw that out there, but we can also...
And we did retweet that too, so we definitely encourage you to send Mira a note, send, what was it, Champagne
_ Joy, and Champagne is...
And you can send her good wishes too, and please, I'm sure anyone listening to this is pretty cool and all that, but, nice things, because I know that sometimes when we get out into social media, some people go like, oh, it's my perfect opportunity to be a jerk. Not in this case. These are people that need a little support. So let's show them what great listeners we have here.
I trust that everyone listening to us is a very classy
I do too,
person.
but you know, I feel like it's one of those things you just kind of have to say, you know?
Sure, absolutely. And you can also reach out to us on Twitter as well. We are at Second Mass Pod. Also, shoot us an email. What is it? secondmassreport@gmail.com. And we would love to interact with you in any of those ways. And you can also get in touch with the Southgate Media Group and check out any of the other great podcasts that are on there. Also, just wanted to say, one of the best things, if you're a fan of this podcast or the podcast, the media group, one of the best ways that you can help us out is by going to iTunes and giving us a rating and or a review on any of our podcasts. It kind of gets the internet blood to flow in our favor, if you will.
Yes, it does. It does.
It just kind of boosts our popularity on iTunes and allows people to kind of see our name and to for us to show up in searches more soon. So if you are so inclined to feel like you want to give us a little help in getting the word out there that we do what we do, that would be a great way to get started.
Well, that's one of the biggest things is when you do review and rate, it will increase the popularity on iTunes, and by doing that, it puts it more in like new and noteworthy or top podcasts, and it really helps people find the show. And that's something that you and I have been really noticing as of late, because we switch networks. A lot of people aren't aware we're here. So if you're somebody who likes the show and wants to share it, that is a real easy way.
And you're referring to that we were on a different podcast for Falling Skies last season.
Right. So now that we're here, letting people know we're here that's one way to do it, is just by, well, as soon as you put it on there and you start, it builds the popularity, it throws it into higher categories, so it goes in front of more people's eyes. So, Frank, I'm glad you mentioned something about that.
Yeah,
I know I actually do that outside of our network for shows that I like. Like, I've been listening to Now Playing. I'm making sure I gave them a 5-star rating and wrote a nice little thing about them. It's a great show. League of Geeks, I give them a 5-star rating and wrote a nice little thing about them. I know how much it helps them.
And just something we've mentioned in last week's podcast, we are planning to have a presence at Wizard World Chicago coming up in a few weeks. So, Rob, do you want to take the reins on that and tell listeners how they can...
well, if you're interested, we are hosting 2 VIP parties, and we have not made it public yet. So if it's somebody who's listening to this show that wants to come to that, you're going to be in Chicago and you think, man, I'd love to go to one of those. We're going to be doing live podcasting. We're going to have a live band there. We're going to, we're hoping to have some cosplayers, possibly some superheroes, possibly some Star Wars. So it should be a lot of fun with that. As well as other things. Like, we've already got some artists and writers in that are going to be at the con that are planning on coming too. So that should be cool. And instead of being like let's sit down and sign stuff, it's truly people are eating lunch, people are mingling, just kind of talking to each other. You want an informal way to meet these guys, this is it. And Frank and I, hopefully, are going to be doing a roundtable for the Nuff Said podcast live there, which is all about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Marvel. So that will be pretty fun. We've never podcasted about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. together, have we, Frank?
There was one time that we did a Meet the Hosts for...
Oh my gosh, we did!
And then that never ended up taking off.
Yeah. That was, once again, another network. And you ended up doing that show.
Yep.
And I ended up doing Nuff Said. And this would be the first time that we're back together again.
And yeah, I'm looking forward to chatting up a little bit where we think maybe season 2 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is going, and a little bit of how that kind of ended up and what we might be looking forward to as far as learning more about Skye and her past, as well as maybe if we're going to see a return and recovery from Agent Fitz. So I'm looking forward to discussing some of those things.
Yeah, lots of things to talk about. Well, so if you are interested in going to this, it is invitation only. You have to have an invitation to get in, and that invitation also gets you discounts on food and stuff for the entire weekend. It's a limited coupon thing, but it's only for our listeners that are doing this. You can write to us at southgatemediagroup@gmail.com and say, hey, I'm interested in going. You can also tweet to us, tweet to me, tweet to @our Southgate or to @SMG Pods. and just say you're interested. It is first come, first serve. We have a very limited amount of tickets, but who knows? If you're interested in going, this is a way that you might be able to go. I'm telling you, it's going to be really cool. And one of the things that I think is cool is this is the first year we're doing it. We already have plans. They've already told us if this is successful, they're like, as long as you want to do it, you'll be able to keep doing this. So this is the first one in Chicago, but if this works the way it looks like it will, we might be replicating this at other cons. You'd be in on the ground floor. I mean, the people that come the first time, they're the ones that are going to be on the list going forward. We're going to offer them tickets here and there.
We could be con artists.
Oh, very nice.
Thank you. I had one good pun.
If you go to our website and you go to upcoming shows, one of the show's names, Con Artist. Yeah, I knew you'd like that.
What was it? There was something about, what was it called? Pinhead or something?
Pinheads, yeah. It's all about Pinterest.
I saw that and I wanted to call it Punheads.
Oh, you want your own show, Punheads? Oh, no one will listen.
Oh, dang it.
Dang it. So there you go. There's your pro tip. Our website is www.southgatemediagroup.com. We have added some cool blogs to it, and we are adding more this week. And please give us some traffic there. Check things out. And we've added Discus to it. So if you go in and you read like Super Connectivity, which is our blog that's on the Nuff Said page, it's all about Marvel. There's you can now get into discussion with Charlie, who's the writer on it. So it's pretty cool. You can type in there and it does like live, or not live, but it does like a thread of discussion. So rather than being on a forum, you're talking right with Charlie there. It's really cool.
Rob,
there you go.
Did you find the title for next week's episode?
I did. Did I already close it? Oh, it's easy. It's easy. I don't even have to look it up again. Till death do us part.
Oh, well, there's our wedding reference.
This one makes sense.
We talked about that. I remember we went through the titles.
Yes.
A few.
And we said somebody's getting married.
Podcast back. Yeah. So there it is, and it's all signs are pointing at Tom and Ann. Yeah. So yeah, we're looking forward to.
I'll tell you who it's not. Lourdes and Frank.
It's not Frank and anybody, Rob. I know better than that.
No, it is. It's Frankenstein.
Okay, we're done. Second Mash Report is a production.
Oh, what about Frank and Beans? I like that too.
Media Group. Shut up. Until next time, stay vigilant, active, and brave.
If you would like to donate to help pay for this and other Southgate Media Group podcasts, simply go to our website, southgatemediagroup.com, and click on the donate button. It can be as little as $1 or, well, as much as you want. Help keep this fun going by supporting this and our other shows. Thanks again for listening, everyone. You're the best fans in the world.